Big Sales National Football Show. We're working right now, believe it or not, with hopefully Mike Golick coming on. Either right now or a little bit later in the program. Our boy Jason Cole will join us. That'll be at 4:30, but we're trying to get Mike Golick on. We're efforting him right now to try to get him on. He just texted me, so we're hoping to see if we can get him on here. And Xander, if he responds back here in a couple seconds here, I'll send you the information here. So we'll kind of do a little bit of producing on the fly there. And we'll get into some college stuff here too. So hopefully Mike's able to come on here in a couple seconds here. So we'll find out here in a minute if he can make that happen for us. I'm not home now. I'm not sure. We'll have to maybe another day. Okay, so he's not home right now. So we'll probably have to do him tomorrow and get him on the program tomorrow. So we'll work on getting him on the program, and we'll see how that thing works out. Maybe we get him for 5:30. Hit the like button. We appreciate it. So what we'll do is we'll go into what we're talking about here. We went shopping. I wanted to make it very clear to you guys that this is not going to be as easy as you think because of the money that's involved here. Sure, the cap goes up, but also cap spending behavior has to be taken into account. You got to remember something about the Eagles and their ego. They believe they know what they're doing. And do you understand? They believe that last year's failures were coaching, not player accountability, not player ability on the roster. You heard that in the exit interview a couple weeks ago when Howie was raving about Zach Cunningham. You're raving about Zach Cunningham? You're kidding. Okay, so he's the least smelling garbage. I mean, come on, man. That to me, that's not how you build your defense back up. Mr. International goes like this. I believe the Eagles are a good franchise. They are. No one's ever said they're not. But I'll ask you one more time, the most important question. Do you believe the Philadelphia Eagles owner and general manager is more concerned about power and control or winning a Lombardi? It's a simple question. And try to answer it fairly and honestly, if some of you can. Barb says control. Moore says power. Okay? Rico thinks that the owner wants to win Super Bowls when all he does is go after power and control. Really? If that were the case, he wanted to win Super Bowls, Doug Peterson would still be your head football coach. Doug Peterson would be your coach. Not some training wheels guy or some stopgap coach. Somebody's going to do this tomorrow. He's got a 667 win percentage. He's been to playoffs 3 times. The organization doesn't look at that's a product of Nick. Howie and the owner look at it as he's a product of their culture. Nick didn't bring shit to the table. Their way of doing business has been here since Joe Banner. Nick parachuted into this. He didn't bring anything. What, his 12-11 record as a play caller? What has he brought? What's the one thing in 3 years he's brought? Stability? Really? Not according to some, and some of the players. And the finish. He went to the Super Bowl. Owners don't look at it that's a product of him. You see, the least important job in the Philadelphia Eagle organization is the head coach. Why? They look at it like this. Every coach that Jeffrey Lurie has had since he's owned the team, since 2000, has had a winning record. They think they can find another Sirianni, and they think they got it in Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore is the coach in waiting. Steve goes, Lurie wants to win a Super Bowl his way. That's his problem. There's no blueprint on winning a Super Bowl. There's just no blueprint on it. Every year is its own different chapter on how you get there. Like your 17 season. Look at all the things that happened in the playoffs with injuries, upsets that happened that got you into the Super Bowl. Plus the out-of-mind play by Foles against Brady. Maybe one of the greatest performances. I'll tell you this. I'll say this to you about Nick Foles against Tom Brady. That's the greatest football game, and I'm including Eli. That's the greatest football game that a quarterback ever played against Tom Brady in the most significant game that mattered and won. That includes Peyton Manning, Eli Manning. That includes anybody you want to put in the conversation with. Patrick Mahomes. Nobody has ever played a better game against Tom Brady than Nick Foles. It's a classic game. It's one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. Dude, he was the better player. I mean, how many times you walk off a football field and say this? Nick Foles is a better ball player than Tom Brady that afternoon. I mean, if you changed uniforms, you couldn't tell the difference. But you could because Foles is a better athlete. Hey, by the way, will somebody hook me up on something? Did Foles throw footballs to Gronk at Arizona? Were they teammates at Arizona, UA? Was it Foles? I mean, I don't remember those two guys. Maybe I think is Gronk older? I think is Gronk older or younger? Did they play together at Arizona? Man, it's one of the greatest play calls in Super Bowl history of all time. He's younger. Okay, thanks, Barb. I thought they were kind of Gronk's older. Okay, all right. I thought they could have maybe overlapped. You know, if I'm not mistaken, didn't Foles play college basketball at Arizona too? I mean, dude, he's quite an athlete. And you know what really kind of made that Super Bowl even cooler when you realize, you know, he did have a Pro Bowl behind his name when he went 26-2 with that touchdown interception ratio. So it wasn't like he blew. Okay? So Foles is a good football player, man. Okay? Kyle says they did play together. Wow. If they really did, how do you not go undefeated? Foles better than Purdy? No. Purdy's more consistent. Foles has more ability. Okay? Purdy's more consistent. Foles gets on those Eli Manning stretches. And he's kind of insane. Gronk's 34, Foles is 35. They played together. They played together at UA. Had to have. They had to have. We should hear something about Kelsey this week, too. Here's something that we wrote down. And before we get to the shopping list on the combines and some of the guys that are at the combines, Eagles needs corner, linebacker. By the way, they're not in any order here. You know why you're not in any order? Why do you think I'm not putting an order here? You know, when somebody says something, like on the radio or wherever, when it comes to putting and analyzing the draft, the stupidest thing you can say is, my number one priority is this. Going into a draft, unless you have the first pick in each round, it's good to have a priority. But what's in front of you? So you take a lesser player because you have a bigger need? That's how you fail in the draft. So let me take the 7th corner with my 22nd pick, and I'm not saying they will, versus an old lineman who fell in the draft because the quarterbacks pushed him down, and he's a second-ranked old lineman. You would do that. Do you understand how stupid that is? and why the teams that understand the draft and people that's why Nolan Smith, no disrespect to Brooks and my guy and all, and I love him to death, but Barrett Brooks wanted Nolan Smith to go in the 10th pick. I was like, that guy's not a first-round draft choice. He's not a first-round draft choice. Some people wanted him to go in the top 10. I'm like, what? Like, pick near Jalen Carter. So when you hear people go, here's my number one priority, you're picking 22nd, guy. What are you talking about? You're going to take the 5th rated safety versus the 2nd rated corner. You would do that? That's how you miss in the draft. You want to hear something crazy? 25%. I think it's 25 or 27% of first rounders are bust. You know, the majority of them are at the top of the draft. There's a 25% chance you're going to have a bust in the draft. That's like saying, well, you know, one bullet or one capsule in the aspirin, one capsule out of 20. Yeah. And the aspirin jar is cyanide. Would you take an aspirin? If you knew you had 20 pills in an aspirin jar and one of them was cyanide, would you take an aspirin for your headache? You want to try to limit as many as you can. Most of the good teams, okay? Most of the good teams that are like, how could Kansas City be so successful in their draft? You know why? It's best player available. Professor asked, outstanding question. Seals, do you prioritize filling holes through free agency or the draft? I think draft should always be best player available. Amen. Me too. And Professor, to your point, I think that's Howie's strength is professional free agency. I think that's where he excels. If he gets it done early in the free agency season versus waiting till the season starts in September, I think he's pretty good at it. I think he has a real knack for finding guys like Gardner Johnson down on the roster and only making a couple, like $800,000 or something like that. I think he has a propensity to be a successful guy down there. So here, again, this is not in any order. Anybody who puts priority orders together on drafts and you're picking down in the 20s, I don't know what they're talking about. You're going to pick the best kid available at 22, not a position of need. So let me get this right. If Lawrence Taylor was sitting at 22, you're going to pass on him to take a corner who's the 7th best corner. I mean, he's the second. He's the 7th best corner. LT's one of the top 3 players on the draft board. You're going to pass on him because you have a need? Cornerback, line, again, these aren't in order. Cornerback, linebacker, safety. You know what? I'll give you an example. Cornerback, linebacker, safety, edge, DT and depth on DT, O-line and depth in OT, wide receiver, tight end, and running back depth. Running back and depth. So get this. When they drafted Lawrence Taylor, I think in 82, they already had Harry Carson, Brad Van Pelt, and Gary Reasons. They had 3 all-pros. 3 All-Pros or 3 Pro Bowlers. And all of them had no idea why the Giants took him. I think LT went 2. And everyone went like this when George Young and Ray Perkins drafted Lawrence Taylor. They already had the best linebacking core in the league. Ray goes like this, I'm not passing on that guy. I'm not passing on him. I don't give a shit if we need an O-lineman and the linebackers couldn't understand it until they got him on the practice field. Lawrence Taylor, thanks, Barb. Lawrence Taylor was 4th team at the start of practice. By the end of practice, he was 1st team. Took him 1 practice. Ray goes, we're playing him and starting him. Took Gary Reason's job. So you had Reasons, Van Pelt, and Harry Carson. It's your linebackers in New York. Then Banks came in. That's the prime example of it. I'm not passing on great players. Okay? I'm not passing. Well, I need a corner. Okay, well, I'm taking that guy right there. Okay? I'm taking that guy. So that's kind of where you are and what you need. Carl Banks was a hell of a player. Spectacular player. Here's the corners that are at the combines right now, and Howie, and I don't know what Nick's doing there. He has no job. I guess I don't know what he's doing there. He has nothing to do with the personnel. He has nothing to do with the personnel that he's going to be. He's not going to be coaching any of these guys. What is it for show? Can you guys tell me, is Nick in Indy for a show? Why is he there? Title only? Okay. Title only? He's not coaching any of the players. What's he there for? Oh, I know. Yeah, not at liberty to say the name anymore. Yeah. Got to put a good face on, don't you? We move on. Let's start with corners. It's Cooper DeJean kid. He's the 8th ranked prospect. He plays at Iowa. Iowa's putting a lot of kids in the pros, especially at the tight end position. Okay, he's a lot of speed. He's a good hitter. He's big, but you're not going to be in the room to get him. So he's kind of off the board. He's going to be good to look at. And here, let me show you something. When you go to I've been to the combines, and I've gone with Jimmy a couple times. You know what Jimmy will do? They'll watch a guy, and for the record, the guy that runs the defensive lineman is Carl Dunbar, my friend. So I text him every year. When you watch the combines, my former teammate and one of my dearest friends, I posted a great picture of me, him, and my wife. We've been friends a long time. And Carl's a D-line coach for the Steelers. And he's going to be working out all the prospects. I think he's also doing edge rushers. So he's going to give me a lowdown on pretty much what some of these front kids look like. And I ask him about other positions too, because he watches some of the drills. Okay. So he'll let me know. But what you do is when you go to the draft, you see this kid Cooper DeJean run, and you watch him do some of the things at the combines, right? And what you do is you look for a guy that kind of resembles him. Xander goes like this: the last cornerback you wanted us to draft was Trent McDuffie, turned into a stud. It's correct. All of you guys hated it. Said he's too small. He's not. I said, I think that guy's going to be a star. And Kansas City took him, and now he is a star. I wanted you. This is, I think, when you had 2 or 3 first-round picks. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the Jordan Davis draft. Okay? I wanted you to take him with your higher pick, I believe. And Kansas City ended up taking him in the back end of the draft. Turned out to be an all-pro. And look how young he is. And they're probably going to let Snead walk out the building because of the way the kid's turned into an all-pro. Is player development not a thing NFL anymore, or are we just microwaving players? It's a great question. That's an absolute – I love player evaluation and player drafting, and I'll tell you why. Death Row, when you were at the University of Miami back in the day and you saw the players and how Jimmy looked at guys and how he evaluated players, and then you saw him take that same fundamentals to Dallas and how he built that dynasty, there is a skill to finding players, not just in the first round. See, to me, the one thing I'm going to give Howie some love and the organization some love for, you know what they do? I think they do a better job rounds 3 through 7 than they do rounds through 1 through 2. I actually think they do a better job. Because you know why? They don't overthink it and overcook it. Players fall in best player available. And you're not overthinking it. And to me, that's when they're at their best. When they don't the Eagles have a propensity in numerous things: coaching, player philosophy, in-game adjustments, game planning, of overthinking things. Let the damn thing play out. Let these guys do their jobs. You're good. Hey, one thing I'm going to say here, I've never said you're a shitty organization. I say you get in your own way. You stop yourself from greatness. Hey, Xander, be great if I took my own advice. Listen to that. I wish I took my own advice. Okay? Honest to God. I wish to God I took my own advice. Player development, though. For me, I saw guys like here, I'll give you, and I've told some of you this story before. Russell Maryland was recruited by Toledo and the University of Miami. I had no idea where Jimmy found him. And Jerome and I were down in Miami at the time, and he kept falling down. He didn't know how to play under his pads, but there was really great feet that he had. He had great feet, and we saw this. And Butch Davis, who was the D-line coach, would go on to Dallas and be the head coach in numerous places. He looks at us and he goes, I don't know. I don't know if this kid's got it. Okay? I don't know. Me and Jerome stopped and went, whoa. He's just young. He needs to just learn how to play under his pads. So you know what he did? He came to me and Jerome. And we helped him. We showed him how to play under his pads. We showed him leverage. Became the first pick overall in the NFL draft. He was recruited by 2 schools. And then Cortez Kennedy. I played that sound clip for you numerous times at Ed Ogeron. Xander, I think you've heard it. Ed Ogeron going like this. All the great players that came into Miami that played defensive tackle that went in the first round, Sapp and all these guys. There was a highlight reel of Jerome and I, how to play the DT position, how to play the 3 and the 1. He goes, these guys would come in. It was a lineage of great defensive tackle play, and you and Jerome Brown started it. We did. We showed everybody how to play the 2 technique, the 2 and the 3, or the 1 and the 3 technique, and a 43 look. How about drafting Brian Murphy from Texas? I like him. Let me get to this. Okay. Let's see here. I like the kid verse too. Sileo is obsessed with the Eagles cap. No, I'm not obsessed with it, guy. Your GM is. You want to spend money to bring Buda Baker in? It's not if you're missing it, Charlie. Do you think Howie Roseman's going to spend $18 million on Buda Baker? Or any safety for that matter? Do you? Do you think anybody's going to spend $20 million on a linebacker in Philly? Don't ask dumb questions you know the answer to. Start with the money. Hey, do you want Patrick Queen? Do you want Buda Baker? Of course you do. Will he spend it? The question this offseason in free agency is not going to be if you want to play or not. It's going to be if you want to spend the money or not. You don't spend money on defense. It's your history. You're making it sound like you're not going to get any free. I didn't say that. You're not getting the ones you think you're getting unless he spends money. Hey, if you want to be good again, I guess this is the case right here. And maybe this is the draft conversation right here in a nutshell. You want to be great again? You're going to have to pay for it. You can't keep going on that side of the ball, and you can't keep playing money ball. You spend all your money on offense, and you try to play money ball on defense. Are you going to spend money to be good again? You're not as good as you think you are. You know, I heard someone go, well, you know, they've been pretty good in the draft the last 2 years. Really? Who's made the biggest impact the last 2 years in the draft? Jalen Carter? Then who? Keely Ringo? Okay. Sidney Brown shows potential. I actually think there's something there. You've had no one. Cam's kind of done something. So Cooper DeJean, you may not be able to pick him, but you know what? If you're a good talent evaluator and not an analytics guy would never look at it this way. Maybe, you know what? Maybe this is why he does look at it this way. I'll take that back. You know what an analytics guy will look at Cooper DeJean? He'll look at Cooper DeJean's measurables, and he'll see if he can match those measurables up someone that's cheaper. And that's what they'll do. Okay? That's what they'll do. You understand what I'm saying? Like an analytics guy, an analytics guy will do this. Who looks like him? But can I get him cheaper in the third? You know what I'm saying? So a coach, an NFL coach, is not going to look at it like that. They're going to go like this. This is where Jimmy was great. You know, he's not quite 6'3". He's 6'1". But you know what? He's better. And that's why they draft Sapp. Or that's why you have Cortez Kennedy. All those guys were 6'1.5", 6'2". Those are Hall of Famers. But you know why they weren't drafted in the top 10? They weren't 6'3", 6'4". But Jimmy knew they were better than the guys. That's why they were at Miami. You're looking, if you're looking at measurables, like Jordan Davis was a measurable. Do we agree? Jordan Davis was a measurable draft pick. 6'5", 348, ran a 4.7, did all the great. You saw it, then you looked at his production. He wasn't very productive at Georgia. You want to hear something crazy? Look it up. In 1 year of play at Miami for me, I was more productive than the entire 4 years that Jordan Davis had at Georgia. His entire 4 years, I was more productive. And it only took me 12 games. And it was significant. And I played on a number one ranked defense in the country for 2 years in a row. Okay? And Jerome missed 4 games his senior year. So it wasn't like that. I had 107 tackles and 9 sacks and led the team in tackles for loss and hits on the quarterback and fumbles. This kid had 9 sacks in 4 years. and had never had more than 20 tackles in a single season. I looked at that and went, really? Now, I took into account what? They rotate a lot. And it's different today because you got to keep people happy. Like Xander knows this. Those Alabama kids, you can't just start 4 guys anymore because those 4 guys behind them will be in the transfer portal. So you got to kind of rotate guys in and keep everybody kind of happy now. So there's something different to that. Okay? Nate Wiggins, Clemson, 13th ranked kid, corner. Dabo likes him a lot, was a true leader, and thought he was a good football player for him. They won a lot of football games, Nate Wiggins. I actually like the player. I don't like the fact that he played in the ACC, though. The ACC, Wake Forest, Duke. I'm sorry, man. I'm hanging my hat in the Southeastern Conference. Maybe the Big Ten. ACC, Pac-12, Big 12, Conference USA. Whew, good luck. If you hit on a kid and he turns out to be a gold mine, congratulations. But I'm playing the law of averages. Like when you guys drafted Carson Wentz out of North Dakota State, oof, hey, man, I'm glad you got a couple of years out of it. I would never draft a kid out of that college. Who's he playing? Against a beer-drinking league up there in Idaho? Or was it North Dakota? I mean, really, what are we talking about here? The entire defense is white? I'm out. I'm like, it's a bunch of beer drinkers. You thought you were playing like in the 1930s when you watch those guys with those wide open lanes. I'm like, that's not for me, man. Who do you play against? I'm out. Not happening. I guarantee there weren't a lot of Jason Sehorns up there. Okay, hey, listen to this. 11 goes, Sills. Josh Allen, Wyoming. Oh, I know. His senior year, he sucked. His junior year, he was better. And I went like this. That guy's a project. He totally was. And he played in the, what is that? He played in the WAC. Man, I don't know. Congratulations. You hit on a guy. Then you turn around and you look at Zach Wilson, BYU, and you're like, that guy couldn't beat Coastal Carolina. And you're telling me he's supposed to beat the Bills and win the AFC East with the Jets? Actually did beat the Bills this year. But win the East? Not likely. Teron Arnold, Bama. I think this is going to be hey, I'm going to tell you my little thing about Bama. Now that Nick's not there, it's the same commitment at Bama going to be there. What's the most important thing Nick Saban did to Alabama? What do you think the number one thing he did for Alabama? Do you know what it was? What was the one thing he did to attract all the players to Tuscaloosa? Tuscaloosa? Hey, the campus is fabulous. It's fabulous. You go to a little section, they got bricks with all the players that were captains and shit. It's the walk that they have. It's a dope place. I actually played at Legion Field down in Birmingham. I played a football game down at Legion Field. That's where Bama used to play. They played a majority of their games now at Tuscaloosa. And what's the one thing Saban did? He brought the greatest assistant coaches in the country to Tuscaloosa. And what does that mean? Well, if I'm a prospect, I'm getting the best coaching. Look at that wide receiver coach that they got down there at Alabama. How that guy's not in the National Football League, he must be making a ton of money with all the players that he's put in the NFL. Holy shit. If that guy ever left Bama, whoever he is, that guy would get an immediate job in the National Football League with all the guys that he's put into the league. You get the greatest coaching on the planet. I want to see what the new regime does. And are you going to make that same commitment? Because when you're calling me and I get a chance to go to a place like Michigan, Ohio State, Miami, LSU. You're telling me I'm going to come to Tuscaloosa. Are you going to have the same coaches that are going to develop me into being an NFL player? Okay? Are you going to have that same commitment? And you spending that money. All those assistants that they had down there at Alabama, all made in the millions, $2.5 million. Their coaching staff is one of the most important things that Saban had. Saban left college football because of nil. He doesn't want to recruit and then have to turn around and recruit his own recruits and then pay them. That's why he left. That's why Coach K left. They don't want to start doing that shit that's not something they want to do. Kool-Aid McKinstry, I love the kid. He's Bama, 19th ranking on him, corner. What I love about him. So let me ask you this. You're telling me he's lining up against wide receivers from LSU, Georgia, A&M, Florida, Tennessee, and he's playing against those guys at Kentucky, and he's doing that on a weekly basis, and he's playing out of conference. Then he plays in a bowl game too as well. Shit. Sign me up, man. That's the kind of kid you look at and go like this. I don't care what he does at the combines. I'm going to see his tape. Show me some of the kids who are like the top receivers in the SEC and who he's lined up against. How does he do there? How does he do against Georgia in the SEC title game? Okay? That's the kind of kid you look at. The combines mean nothing to me. With a player like Kool-Aid, I don't give a shit what he runs. I don't care what he does. I want to see his game film. That's all I care about. Enos Rackerstraw, Missouri. Missouri had a really good year on defense. Now, my problem again is the Big 12. How many truly great defenders have come out of the Big 12 in the last 10 years? Kind of sketchy. It's not a conference that plays a lot of defense, but Missouri did. They had some upsets. They won a bunch of games this year, and they won mostly on defense. I voted for this kid for the All-American team. Had some really good games. He's a good-looking prospect. You can get him at the bottom probably of the first round. Okay? Kyle, I think they did. Did Missouri beat Ohio State this year? Did they? I think they may have. Okay? Okay? I think they may have. Let's go to linebackers. I think you guys are going to be very excited about this. There's two Clemson players that are at the top of the linebacker list. Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. Trotter Jr. has gone from his pro day and has gone up the board where he went from the middle of the second to the bottom of the first. The problem with Trotter Jr. is he's a little undersized. He's a little bigger than Nakobe. But again, undersized linebackers. Now, that's right, Bird, my mistake. They're not in the Big 12 anymore. They're SEC. That's right, SEC. Thank you for the correction, my friend. Thank you for the correction. That's right, they're not in the Big 12 any longer. They're in the Southeastern Conference. They've been there for a bit too, by the way. Carter went back to school. So he's an underclassman. He's made that declaration. The Tigers beat the Buckeyes in the Cotton Bowl. Okay. Thank you guys for the correction. That's right. Missouri is in the Southeastern Conference now. That's right. That means they're playing Georgia. Wow. So that kid, Rakerstraw, is playing against high-quality kids at the cornerback position. That's another guy to look at. Trotter Jr., let's see what he does at the combines. He had a really good junior year. He had a really good year last year. I don't know what his classification is, if he's a senior or junior this year. And this year, I don't think it started off well, but finished well. I just think he's undersized a bit. Okay? Carter said that he's got unfinished business. Yeah, because, hey, Griffin, Miami beat them. They had a really bumpy ride in the middle of the season. Okay? Niners go like this. L'Jarius Sneed to the Eagles, confirmed by Philly 500. How's that possible? Free agency hasn't started yet. Junior Colson, linebacker, Michigan. They had a really good defense. Okay. Sills, how's the game tape look on Trotter? Outstanding. I'll tell you one thing he does really well, and he does like his dad. He hits that gap. Now, the undersized, kind of, in a way, kind of nerves me, but you know what he plays like? He's got a little Sidney Brown in him. He's going to run his ass in there, and he's a hitter. He's a hitter. I'll tell you this, too. He can cover tight ends. He's still undersized. Like, it would be a mismatch to put a guy like Gronk on him or a guy like a 6'5" tight end just because of the law of physics. He's not that big a dude, but he's fast. I think he's a 4'5" guy. Okay. I do a lot of homework on these guys. And because I know Xander is too. I'm a big college guy. And I vote on all the I vote on all the I vote on all the teams. Okay? I vote on all the teams when it comes to I vote on all the teams. So Mr. International, cool. I love the college game. By the way, the college game is turning into outstanding stuff. Tommy Eichenberg, linebacker, Ohio State. Another great position for Ohio State. They produce a ton of linebackers. Produce a lot of kids. I wanted to go play at Ohio State. I wanted to play in the Rose Bowl. That was my dream, was to play for Woody. I was recruited by Woody my sophomore, and guys, this is for the older folks. Do you remember when Woody punched that guy? When did Woody punch that guy in the Gator Bowl? Was that the 78 or 79? Because I was a freshman and I had went to a Buckeye camp, and I forget what year that was, but the year that he punched that Clemson guy in the head, then he got fired the next day. Okay. So I must have just been going into high school at that camp because he got fired that offseason. And they really liked me. When I was a freshman, my aunt can tell you, when I was a freshman, I was like 6 foot 240. I was a big kid then. And yeah, so man, I love Woody Hayes. He called me one time recruiting me, and he did this. I'm not the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes anymore. Earl Bruce is. We'd love to have you come take a visit. My grandfather's on the other phone. My aunt knows this story. We'd really love to have you come here and play at Ohio State. I go, Coach, I had a dream to play for you. He goes, Earl was my defensive back coach, and he was really, 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 really high on you. And he would love to have you come here and take a visit. I took a visit. I got drunk as hell. And anybody who's been to High Street in Columbus knows that there's like this bar there. I fell all the way down the steps, and I had to meet Earl Bruce the next day. And Earl Bruce goes, I hear you had a hell of a night. And I was like, yeah. And I forget, I think Jim Lachey took me around with Mike Tomczak. They took me around on my recruiting visit. I got so hammered. Sorry, Bet, but I got hammered on my recruiting trip, and I fell down these steps, and it was like 1,000 steps. It's called the Mine Shaft. Back then, I don't know what it is now. It's probably not even there. And there I am. Look, I got cuts all over my head. I walk into the coach's office the next day because they take you out after dinner and talking to you and shit. So there I am. I'm sitting there, and I had no sleep. And Earl Bruce goes, yeah, well, I hear you had a hell of a night. I'm like, it was a lot of fun. He goes, had a few? Yes, sir, I did. He goes, how'd you get the cuts? Coach, I don't remember. He goes, honesty. I love it. Oh man, that was a really great. As many of you will know, it was a really good recruiting trip. I'll just say that. Tyron Hopper, linebacker, another Missouri guy. So those are your linebackers that you could take a look at when the upcoming draft comes up here. So I think it's a pretty good draft this year. I do. I think it's a pretty good draft. Safety. Now, I'm going to tell you something. Cameron Kitchens would love to play in Philly. He would love to play in Philly. He's around the 27th rated prospect, 26, somewhere there. Would Howie draft a safety in the first round? Unlikely. But if he sneaks into the second round, could Howie take him? All-American 2 years in a row. Played on a pretty good defense. I love the kid. I'm biased to the kid, obviously. Yeah, I think he is one of the top three. I think this guy, Tyler Nubin, safety Minnesota, also is in that conversation too. They do a nice job up there in Minnesota. They got a lot of nice prospects. They've done a really good job. What's the coach's name up there? I forget. He's done a nice job of turning that program around. Minnesota used to be a really big-time college program back in the day. I took a recruiting trip to Minnesota. Lou Holtz was the head coach. And I loved the visit. I mean, they played at the Hubert Humphrey Dome, the 3H Dome back in the day. But I took a recruiting trip to Minnesota. So, I mean, I love the colors. I love the program. It was in the Big Ten. I think Joe Salem had just been fired, and then Holtz got the gig when I was being recruited there. He's a good ball player, this Nubin kid. Kalen Bullock, USC. Man, the only problem is he played at USC. You know, USC playing defense with Lincoln Riley. Give me a break. Rod Moore, safety, Michigan. Michigan had a great defense this year. I like the kid. Sion Vaki, safety, Utah. Kyle Whittingham has so many great football players at that program. Okay? I know. Hey, Barb, I became friends with Lou. He lived in Orlando. We used to go play golf in Orlando all the time. Lou's a good dude, man. He bought his house with Notre Dame money. That's what he always tells everyone. Yeah, he bought a house. I forget the golf course he lives on. It's a real high-end golf course. But he goes, I bought the house with Notre Dame money. I just up there, look at it. Got right here on the 14th green. Right there. There's going to be a dark horse player that's drafted in the back of the draft. Those players in the back of the draft always outwork the talented ones. With death row, I think you got two of the greatest ones on your team right now in Philly with Jason Kelsey and with Jordan Mailata. I don't know. I don't think Trotter's a first round pick. Seals, how long did you train with Cowboy Bob Orton? Hey, did you see Ole Anderson died? Ole Anderson and Bob Orton signed me to WCW with Undertaker. Yeah. We all signed at the same time and worked out at the Power Gym. That was the school they had. Vader had already gone through. Ole died yesterday. And I was like, damn. Ole Anderson died? So Ole and yeah, but hey, one last one. And Xander, I'll take a break because I got to get to the edge rushers and the OTs. So get this. So my friends and I wrestled with them were the Road Warriors. And Animal and Hawk, Mike told me the story. He goes like this. He's like, yeah, man, we were bombing. We were just bombing. And we had nothing going on. And both of us played football. Animal played at Minnesota. He was a Gopher. I think he wrestled there too, if I'm not mistaken. Mike may have wrestled there as well. So you know what Ole Anderson did? He dropped a pair of shoulder pads on them. And you know why they're the color of red? Because WCW was based in Georgia and it was based in Atlanta. And it was all Bulldog fans. So when they saw these guys coming out and these red shoulder pads with these spikes on them, they were kind of trying to buy into the Georgia Bulldog fan. And that thing, they went over to Japan, and that thing just took off after that. And it saved their lot. It saved their careers. Just only putting those shoulder pads, okay, on the Road Warriors. That's what changed the whole thing. Greatest tag team of all time. Greatest gimmick of all time. That's for damn sure. Absolutely. Those guys were some of the greatest people. And if you go to my Twitter page, Animal passed away a couple of years ago. His wife and his daughter follow me on Twitter. And I love the family. It's great people, man. They invented Zubas. You guys probably don't know who Zubas are. There's these sweatpants that used to have back in the day. And they invented it. And I think Starter bought it from them for like $45 million. Okay? They started those Zubas. And the NFL, started getting all like the logos put on the pants. I used to get a pair every year when they owned it, and it was just their brand. But then it went to Starter. It was different. Yeah, man, those things were fantastic. I love those days, man. Those were great. Absolutely great. All right. We'll take a look at the edge, O-line, and running back. These are the guys that are at the draft. Howie and Nick are there in Indianapolis. Hit the like button. Don't forget Jason Cole at 4:30. Keep it here, National Football Show.